Breaking into the legal profession these days has gotten so much more difficult given the sheer amount of people that are studying law at university. So this video today will serve as a guide as to how to land a job in one of the big law firms in the country. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Ricky. I'm currently working as a law graduate in one of the top law firms in the country, and I was also able to land multiple clerkship roles in my years as a university student. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now the process actually starts well and truly before you start applying. Think about what you're doing currently in your life outside of studying law at university. Are you working full-time or part-time? Do you have any hobbies? Do you play any social sport? At the end of the day, law firms are looking for people who basically stand out for the rest, who are unique from everyone else that just does uni at law and gets good grades. Now, in terms of grades, they are 100% important. Anyone who says that your grades aren't matter or they don't matter at all are probably lying to you. Yes, grades are 100% important, but they are not the be all and end all. Think about the sheer amount of people that are currently studying at university that probably have 6.5, 7 GPAs, a lot. So while it is important to have really good grades, you should aim to have really good grades, but you're also doing multiple things on the side. Being able to show that you have effective time management skills, which when you get into the legal profession will be critical. Now let's talk about how to put together your resume and cover letter. So in your resume, you really want to highlight your achievements and your work experience. A lot of the law firms really love asking questions about your work experience, what you're currently doing in your role. You should be able to communicate exactly what you do in your role and also how some of the skills that you're doing from your resume or in your part-time job, you want to be able to communicate effectively how that translates into the legal profession and how those skills and what you're learning ideally will help you make yourself an effective lawyer in the future. Now that moves on to the cover letter. Now when you're applying for roles, each firm will get you to send in your cover letter. Now don't make the mistake of sending the exact same cover letter for every single law firm. That is just a recipe for disaster. You need to be doing individual cover letters for individual law firms. Every time you apply for an individual law firm, you should go onto their website, look at their values, look at their motto statement, their mission statement, and look at what their values are. This is critical because you want to be able to discuss the values that the firm is all about and how you currently apply those values right now in your everyday life. When you're putting the resume and cover letter together, you need to make sure that the document, the spelling errors, there's no spelling mistakes, the font, the sizes, they're all consistent. At the end of the day, you are applying at a law firm, so it is critical that your documents look absolutely crisp because at the end of the day, if a partner or a lawyer picks up your resume and cover letter and sees spelling mistakes, it is just an instant disaster. You don't want that. So now that you've gotten into the stage of putting it together, your resume and your cover letter, the next stage is now actually applying through the firm's portal. When you're applying for a law graduate role or a clerkship role, this application process on their portal usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour. So my tip would be, don't just do multiple firms in one go. Do one firm maybe once a day, or maybe one firm in the morning and then another firm later in the day. It is a bit of a process, so you need to make sure that you're absolutely fresh when you're applying through their portal. In the portal, you usually have to submit your resume, your cover letter, your academic transcript, and they usually give you a bunch of questions. Sometimes they want you to write in an essay format, or they might ask questions about what you're currently doing at the moment. What are 3 things that you would like out of this profession? What areas of law are you interested in? They just want to know a little bit about you. So make sure that you explain very communicatively, concisely, all those things, and you want to be able to do it when your mind is fresh. Again, just noting that when you're applying or into the portal, make sure that your cover letter is different for every single law firm, tailoring it to their specific value. Now, after applying to the portal, some firms afterwards might get you to do an IQ or a personality test. Some firms might give you problem solving scenarios, other firms might just give you simple IQ pattern tests. Those problem solving scenarios typically involve a day-to-day sort of life as a lawyer, in terms of how would you go about approaching this scenario or this situation or that situation. So my best recommendation is to just answer it with the best to your ability. They're usually not too difficult, but again, same with my advice previously, make sure that you give yourself enough time and you don't do it after a grueling day of work or uni. Make sure that you're doing these sort of exam or IQ tests with a fresh mind. Now, after doing the potential IQ, personality, problem solving scenario test, and you make it past the next stage, it's usually a networking event. Now, the network event usually happens before your actual interview, but sometimes you might have the interview and then the networking event after. So it really depends on the firm as to when they like to have their networking events. So in the networking event, what happens is all the other candidates who have made it past this stage get invited, and the firm's partners, lawyers, and some of the law graduates will be in attendance. There's usually food and drinks that are being served, so it's pretty much like a typical networking evening. If you've been to a few of them, you would know what I'm talking about. Now, in my opinion, having gone through these networking events, I think this part of the whole process is so much more important than the interview. And let me explain why. You're ultimately showcasing your ability to socialize within an uncomfortable environment. Because at the end of the day, you're going into an environment or an event where you don't know pretty much 95% of the people there. You might know one or two of the candidates through uni or some social event or through school, but for the most part, you're basically walking into an environment where you don't know anyone who works there. You may or may not know people that work there, but I'm gonna put under the assumption that you don't know anyone that works in this place. So you're already in an uncomfortable environment. But this allows you to showcase who you truly are and really be able to set a good first impression. The partners and lawyers will be carefully watching how you go about yourself in the networking event. You might not notice it while you're in the networking event and socializing with people, but trust me, everyone has eyes on you. Now, before you actually go to the networking event, I would highly recommend just preparing some questions that you'd like to ask to the lawyers when you're speaking. So make sure that you prepare your questions in accordance to the partner, a lawyer, or just a law graduate. So maybe for law graduates, you could ask questions like, how are you currently finding your experience as a law graduate? What areas of law are you in? Are there any particular areas that pique your interest? How did you go about the whole clerkship law graduate process? What are your recommendations? You don't want to be too formal to law graduates. At the end of the day, you're a human being. They just want to be able to have normal conversations, but within the topics of what they're currently doing as law graduates. Now, the biggest thing when you're asking questions to partners, law graduates, lawyers, is you want to be able to listen attentively. Focus on them speaking about their experiences rather than you doing too much of the talking. You should ultimately be in the position where you want to get to know more about what they do and understanding the legal profession from what it is, based on the law graduate's perspective, the lawyer's perspective, and the partner's perspective. So it is highly critical that you're listening carefully every time you ask a question, because at the end of the day, the advice they might give you or the value that they might provide to you or some of the tips that they might give you, you could be able to use to your advantage when you move on to the interview. Being able to listen attentively and with strong eye contact is genuinely one of the best skills that you can have. And for me personally, I was able to get and obtain this skill pretty much from reading books and understanding human psychology, but also being able to go to these networking events and basically being thrown into the deep end. So work on the ability to listen carefully with good eye contact and really try and remember what these people say so that next time you have a conversation with them, you can bring up the things that they said, because those are the things that really will count when it comes to working into the legal profession and in the future. Now, I did say this networking event will have food and drinks, and when I mean drinks, there will be alcohol. Now, my approach to this is just use common sense. I personally would like to have one beer or have alcohol just to sort of show that you fit into the social setting. But my recommendation would be just hold on to one beer or one glass of wine and just sip on it for the rest of the evening. Make sure that when you're going to the networking event that you look like $1 million too. It is so important that you dress sharp, because again, it's all about setting good first impressions. Now, if you're successful at the networking event and you progress into the interview, you're almost there. Now, when it comes to the interview, I'm personally not a big believer in the be yourself sort of attitude and mindset. I still think though you need to be 100% authentic. Now, the interview is generally supposed to give the interviewer an idea more of who you are and what you do based on what you've provided in your resume. It's also an opportunity to ask the firm and the partner interviewing you potential questions about what the setup's like there, how many teams are involved, how many people work in the teams, what are the current matters that you're working on. So it's a good opportunity not only for the partner to get to know you or the HR person to get to know you, but also an opportunity to ask questions and to know more about the firm and the legal profession from your perspective. Basically, in this interview, you're communicating what you've put in your resume. The interviewer isn't going to ask overly difficult questions, but they really want to see how you're able to communicate effectively what you do, what you're studying, where you're working at, what skills have you obtained, and what really excites you about working in law. Now, here are some tips I would go about before you actually go into your interview. Usually a partner or two partners will be interviewing you, and in advance you'd be notified who's actually interviewing you. So what I would do is I would research the partner's profile on the firm's website or maybe their LinkedIn. I would see what their role is, what area of law they're working in, and I would prepare questions specifically tailored, such as what got you to work into this area, or what was the driving force that really got you to working into this area of law. Also, some of the matters that you're currently working on. Also, things like speaking about matters that they've worked on in the past that have been advertised in the firm. Speak about, what did you think about this deal? Was this deal particularly difficult to get across? How were the clients, were they able to communicate effectively with you throughout this deal? What made this deal stand out the most? Things like that. You're essentially trying to show to the partner that you've done your homework. Obviously, when you're going into an interview, you should not be preparing a script. You should go as your full authentic self. But again, it's not necessarily about be yourself, it's be authentic. Now, I made a TikTok video talking about something I would do in an interview, and that is to make the first 30 seconds count your life depends on it. Think about when you're scrolling on Instagram and TikTok and you're going through reels doom scrolling. For the most part, if a reel doesn't get you hooked in the first 3 seconds, you're gonna keep scrolling. It's the same thing as interviewing in law. The partner who's interviewing you may have already interviewed 10 or 15 other people, and to be honest, they're just sick and tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. And this comes back to my part of being able to stand out. How can you make yourself stand out in the first 30 seconds? You should be able to walk in with a smile on your face, look confident, show that you're proud to be in this position, that you're invited to go into this interview. And when a partner or the interviewer asks, how's your day been so far? Or how's your morning been? Don't just say, yeah, it's been good. Say something like, I took my dog for a walk this morning along the river. And then the interviewer might ask, what dog do you have? And there you go. You're in an instant conversation well and truly before the interview. Those are things that you need to keep in mind before you go into an interview. Because if you can set the standard within the first 30 seconds of who you are, how you communicate, how you speak, and how you carry yourself, you might have already won the partner over within that first 30 seconds. Or if it was vice versa, that you're slouching, you haven't really dressed too well, or you're not really looking up with good eye contact, or you haven't really shook the partner's hand very firmly. Within the first 30 seconds, you might kill the vibe, and the partner might just be going through the motions of asking you the questions, but they've already made up in their mind that this guy's not the person, or this girl, or this guy is not the right fit for this job. So My biggest tip is make sure that you make your first 30 seconds count like your life depends on it. Now, overall, the whole process of applying for a role in a law firm or as a clerk or a graduate is absolutely tedious. It is unlike anything that you have probably ever had to apply for. The process is very competitive, and if you are able to land a role as a clerk or a graduate in the legal profession, you should truly be proud of yourself, because it is a testament not only with the hard work that you've put in, but also some of the things that you've been able to do along your way on self-improvement and being able to get to a position where you've landed a job in a legal firm. The whole process is being able to prove and showcase your true colors, who you really are, and how much hard work you've been putting in, not with your studies, but also as a person in terms of maturity. So there you have it, my full breakdown as to how to be able to land a job as a clerk or a grad in a law firm, touching on my experience, how I was able to land a job, and hopefully this video serves as a good guide for when you guys start applying for roles. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.